Hey guys, welcome back to more homeowner association stories. In this video, an HOA Karen blocked an ambulance from coming to my house and locked the neighborhood gates. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the video. The first one is titled, "Am I the jerk for getting my dad's HOA president arrested after a satellite dish installation turned violent?" So this all started about 3 months ago when I temporarily moved in with my dad to save money before relocating to Seattle for a new job. For context, my dad lives in this pretty nice townhouse community in suburban Pennsylvania. He has owned the place for about 15 years but never really got involved in the HOA politics. He's more of a pay the dues and mind your own business kind of guy. I should also mention that I work remotely in software development, so having reliable internet was pretty crucial for my job. The whole mess began when my dad decided to switch from cable to satellite TV to save some money. He had been complaining about his rising cable bill for months, so when he saw an ad for a really good satellite TV deal, he jumped on it. He scheduled the installation for a Tuesday morning when I would be home to let the installer in while he was at work. The installer, his name was Gordon, which is relevant later, showed up right on time at 9 AM. A super professional guy, probably in his mid-30s, who had been doing satellite installations for over a decade. He did all the preliminary checks, got his equipment ready, and was just setting up his ladder when all hell broke loose. Out of nowhere, this couple comes sprinting across the street like their house was on fire. I'm talking full-on Olympic speed-walking levels of urgency. The man, who I later learned was named Roger, was the HOA president, and his wife Annabelle were absolutely losing their minds. Annabelle started screaming before they even reached our driveway. "Stop right there! This is a violation! This is a violation!" She was wearing what I can only describe as a tennis outfit that had never seen a tennis court, and her highlighted bob haircut was practically vibrating with rage. I stepped outside completely confused, still holding my coffee, and I asked, "Is there a problem?" Roger, a guy who looked like he started every morning by practicing his scowl in the mirror, thrust a piece of paper in my face and said, "This is the problem. The HOA board passed a new rule last month. No satellite dishes. They are eyesores that decrease property values." Now, my dad had mentioned nothing about this, so I tried to be diplomatic. "I'm sorry, I was not aware of any new rules. My dad ordered this service. I'm just here to let the installer in. Maybe we could—" "Shut it!" Annabelle shrieked, turning to Gordon, who was already halfway up the ladder. "You, get down from there right now! We will have you arrested for trespassing!" Gordon, maintaining his professionalism, started to descend the ladder. "Ma'am, I'm just doing my job. If there's an HOA issue, the homeowner needs to sort that out with the satellite company." I can wait while that is when things went from bad to worse. Roger, this 50-something-year-old man in khakis and a polo shirt, suddenly grabbed the ladder and started climbing up after Gordon. "I will drag you down myself, you property value destroying piece of crap!" I immediately called my dad while trying to get Roger to calm down. Meanwhile, Annabelle was following me around the driveway, screaming about how people like me were ruining their beautiful community. Well, mind you, I was wearing sweatpants and a Boulder computer science department t-shirt, looking about as threatening as a sleepy golden retriever. "You're just like all the other renters," she spat. "No respect for property values, no understanding of community standards." I tried explaining that I was not even a renter, that I was the homeowner's son, but she was not having it. She just kept getting louder and more personal with her insults. Then I heard a scuffle on the ladder. Roger had actually grabbed Gordon's tool belt and was trying to yank him down. Gordon, understandably not wanting to fall from 15 feet up, managed to safely get down, but was absolutely livid. "Sir," Gordon said, his voice shaking with controlled anger, "you just committed assault. I'm calling the police." Roger's face turned an alarming shade of purple. "Oh, you want to call the police? Go ahead. I'm on the town council. They know me. They know what kind of people cause trouble around here." That is when Annabelle started making comments that made my blood boil. She began throwing racial slurs at Gordon, suggesting that his kind should not be in the neighborhood anyway. I was recording everything on my phone by this point, completely shocked at how quickly this had escalated. Gordon, who had clearly dealt with this kind of treatment before, maintained his composure and called both the police and his supervisor. But Roger was not done. He got right in Gordon's face, poking his chest with his finger. "You think you can come into my neighborhood and—" He never finished that sentence because Gordon, having finally reached his limit, grabbed Roger's jabbing hand and pushed him back. Roger, apparently having waited for exactly this moment, threw a wild punch that caught Gordon in the shoulder. What followed was something I never thought I would witness in my dad's driveway at 9:30 on a Tuesday morning. So these two grown men were rolling around on the ground throwing punches while Annabelle shrieked for someone to call the authorities on these thugs. Well, the irony of her already having been recorded using racial slurs seemed kind of lost on her. The police arrived about 10 minutes later, by which time my dad had also gotten home. They separated everyone, and that is when things got interesting. Remember how Roger had bragged about knowing the police? Well, it turns out they did know him too, but not in the way that he had implied. Officer Cassimi, the first on the scene, took one look at Roger and sighed, "Oh, this is the third incident this month." I learned that Roger had already had 2 complaints filed against him for similar aggressive behavior towards delivery drivers and a landscaping crew. The HOA board had apparently been trying to keep these incidents quiet, but here is where I might be the a-hole. While giving my statement to the police, I not only showed them the video I had recorded, but also mentioned that I'd been working remotely and had a security camera running in the window, which had captured the entire incident from another angle. I had not actually told anyone about this second video until that moment, not even Gordon. The second video clearly showed Roger as the aggressor climbing the ladder and assaulting Gordon first. Between that and Annabelle's recorded racist tirade, they were both arrested, Roger for assault and Annabelle for making criminal threats. Here's where it gets complicated. The arrests led to a whole investigation into the HOA's board practices. Turns out the new rule about satellite dishes was not even legal. They had violated FCC regulations that specifically protected homeowners' rights to install satellite dishes. Plus, they'd never properly notified all homeowners of the proposed rule change. They had only told their little clique of friends so they could vote it in quietly. The fallout has been intense. Roger and Annabelle were forced to resign from the HOA board. They are now facing criminal charges, and Gordon's company is suing them civilly. The HOA is in complete disarray as a full audit of their practices was demanded by several homeowners. My dad says that I did the right thing by recording everything and cooperating with the police, but some neighbors are saying that I should have tried to handle things within the community instead of letting it escalate to arrests. They are saying that I have destroyed community harmony and property values have actually dropped because of all the negative attention. So, Reddit, am I the a-hole for essentially getting the HOA president and his wife arrested instead of trying to resolve things more peacefully? And yeah guys, let me know what you think about this in the comments. I would say OP was not the a-hole and the way he dealt with this was absolutely correct. The HOA president and his wife acted like complete idiots and they got what they deserved in my opinion. Either way, comment number 1, not the a-hole. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. They thought they were untouchable because of their HOA position and connections with local police. Well, karma came for them with receipts. Another comment said, everyone sucks here. Yes, Roger and Annabelle were way out of line with their behavior and racism, but you deliberately escalated the situation by hiding the existence of the second video until it would do maximum damage. A warning that you had additional footage might have de-escalated the situation, but instead you chose nuclear revenge. Also, involving the police in a civil matter is always messy. Comment number 3, everyone sucks here except Gordon. OP, you're not wrong about Roger and Annabelle being terrible, but you've turned our quiet community into a circus. News vans have been driving through, property values are tanking, and now we are stuck in a legal battle over HOA leadership. You could have just helped your dad file a complaint with the FCC about the satellite dish rule. And the next one is titled, HOA Karen blocks ambulance from coming to my house. And by the way, if you still enjoy the HOA stories, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to not miss any of my daily videos. Thank you so much, and please don't forget to also turn on the notifications. So, I've been going through a particularly rough time these last few months. I'm extremely grateful though that my daughter Lily and I are safe. My name is Louise and I'm a single mom living in South Africa. My husband passed away from cancer a few years ago, and 6 months ago we moved into a gated community so that we could be closer to his parents and mine. I like the idea of living in a gated community because of the safety that it could provide us. I thought it could provide me with less worries, but I was wrong. The first while that we lived in our house, things were fine. Sure, there's Karen who headed up the homeowners association, but everything was trivial. We had disagreed on a few things, but the color I painted my patio and where I placed my plotted plants were not anything that got me that upset. After watching my husband battle cancer, I learned not to worry about the minor details because life is too short. A few months ago, we got invited to a birthday party in the complex. My daughter Lily, who is 9, is extremely allergic to peanuts and she accidentally ate a peanut butter cookie and immediately went into anaphylaxis shock. I had an EpiPen and used it as soon as I saw Lily was in distress, but this time her reaction was worse than I'd ever seen before and I immediately called 911 and then carried Lily downstairs. Her breathing had me extremely worried. I felt relieved when I heard the sirens approaching. Getting Lily into the ambulance and swiftly off to the hospital should have been easy, but it wasn't. I'm gonna do my best to tell you about what happened in the following moments. I'm calm now that the situation has passed and justice has been served, but that day I feared that I would lose my only child because of one woman's ego and believed that her rules mattered more than my child's life. Karen met the ambulance at the gate to our community, but instead of unlocking the wooden structure, she stopped the ambulance and said, "I need to see your identification and proof of authorization before you enter the community property." "Ma'am," said one of the paramedics, "we have a child that we need to treat. We need to get her to the hospital as fast as we can. We don't have the time to be going over paperwork." Witnessing the exchange, I felt livid. I did not know why Karen was doing this. She saw my daughter lying on the grass and me there with her. I quickly asked one of the other bystanders to stay with Lily while I approached the gate. "Please, Karen," I said, trying to stay calm, "let them in. Lily needs them. She could die if she doesn't get to the hospital." "I'm sorry, Louise," said Karen, "but there are rules in place for a reason. The Homeowners Association has strict regulations about who can enter the property. It's for everyone's safety, including yours and your daughter's." "We are wasting time," I said. "You need to open that gate right now." I was the one that called the ambulance. They're just driving in to pick up me and Lily and then leaving. "They are coming on our property," said Karen. "It takes authorization. I cannot make exceptions." "Well, can you at least let them onto the property without their vehicle so they can see my daughter and carry her out?" I asked. "No," said Karen. "That would also be against regulations." I looked around. The property was vast. It would take me too long to carry Lily around the property to the walking path and then bring her out onto the street. The gate was too high to lift her over to. I tried to remain calm and think despite feeling my heart beating out of my chest because I was absolutely terrified that I was gonna lose my daughter. I continued to plead, but to no avail. I looked over at Lily and could see that she was getting worse. "Lily's getting worse," I said, raising my voice. "We need to act now. Karen, open the gate. I'm not asking you. I'm telling you this is what needs to be done." "No," said Karen. A few of the others in the complex began to echo my pleas, but Karen stood firm to the fact that it was against their Homeowner Association regulations. The paramedics tried to get Karen to listen too, but it didn't work. I considered calling the police, but decided that would waste too much time. "Can you just run through the gate?" I said after a moment. Normally, I would not advocate for such a thing, but I was willing to do anything to save my daughter's life, even if it got me in trouble. The paramedics looked at each other and then got into their vehicle. "Move out of the way," shouted one of the paramedics. I ran over to where Lily was lying on the grass. I saw her struggling to breathe and begged her to stay with me, and that help was coming. "Mama loves you, baby girl," I said. "Keep fighting." The ambulance backed up and then accelerated. It drove right through the wooden gate. It splintered into pieces and the ambulance was able to get Lily rushed to the hospital. The situation was the most serious I'd ever witnessed my daughter in before. I rode along in the back of the ambulance and watched one of the paramedics do what he could to keep my daughter alive. She was given oxygen and an injection. The ride now feels like a blur though. We were going too fast and I wondered if I was gonna lose Lily. I was so angry because of the precious time that Karen had made us waste, but I tried to tell myself that for the moment my only concern needed to be Lily and that I could deal with everything else afterwards. At the hospital, the doctors were able to stabilize Lily and thankfully she had not suffered any damage that couldn't be repaired because of the amount of time it had taken to get her to the hospital and under a doctor's care. It took the doctors several hours to get things under control though, and during that time I was not allowed to be with Lily and I couldn't help but think of how I was gonna get Karen to pay for what she did to me and Lily. I knew that the HOA's rules were strict, but not allowing life-saving care was absolutely ludicrous. I wondered what Karen would have done if it was someone in her family that needed help. I doubted that she would have stood around arguing with the very people who could help them. Having time, I began to write up a plan of what I was gonna do, regardless of the outcome with Lily's life. I found myself shaking as I took notes and researched options. I was gonna hold Karen and the HOA accountable so that no one would ever have to go through the horror that I was experiencing. I knew that I could pursue a civil lawsuit, but I didn't feel like that would be enough. The consequences needed to be more severe. I decided that I would pursue criminal charges against Karen because she had been negligent in ensuring that my daughter had access to necessary life-saving care in a timely manner. Lily was able to recover, but we were in the hospital overnight just to be sure that she had recovered from the anaphylaxis shock and that it didn't continue to affect her breathing. When we got home, I made sure that Lily and I got to spend a few days doing activities that she liked and taking it easy at the same time just to be sure that she was truly recovered. When Lily returned to school, I got to work gathering the evidence that was needed in order to proceed with the criminal charges and the lawsuit. With the 911 call recording, eyewitness accounts from the paramedics, neighbors and the police that did show up later after the gate had been smashed, as Karen called them after we left to go to the hospital, and the security camera footage from the gatehouse, I knew that I had proof. "These are hefty allegations," said one of the officers to me when I showed up at the station. "And the investigation into the gate being broken is ongoing. I expect when you see the footage on the camera, you'll be able to understand the entire situation." I replied. A few days later, the police arrived at the HOA complex and Karen was arrested. The charges included reckless endangerment, obstruction of justice, and interference with emergency medical services. I also had a lawyer who was pursuing civil charges against Karen in a personal injury lawsuit. My lawyer assured me that everything could be a long and tedious process, but I did not care. I was determined to get justice. I was not in it for the money. I wanted to make sure that justice was served. Finally, here we are months later and it's finally over and I can live in peace with my daughter in our gated community knowing that things will improve. Karen will be going to jail for a period of 6 months. The HOA also had to pay me a settlement because of their rules did state that everyone entering the complex, regardless of the reason, needed to be fully vetted before entering. The HOA promised that they would make changes to the regulations and they were getting a full review, especially when it comes to medical and emergency service measures. Training is also being implemented for all members of the board, including CPR and first aid, so that they will also be more able to assist in the event of medical emergencies. As for the money that I received in the settlement, I've donated some of it to charities in the community so that they can help children and families in need. I've also put some away in Lily's college fund. I've also been working with the local schools to help raise awareness about food allergies. Since the people hosting the party knew that my daughter was allergic to peanuts, they should have taken more precautions to ensure that the food at the party was peanut-free. In the future, I'm going to also increase my vigilance when it comes to the family's understanding of my daughter's allergy. I think some people don't realize how severe anaphylaxis shock can be. I don't know what will happen when Karen gets out of jail. She may be hostile against me. If things get too bad though, I know that I can afford to move to another complex. But perhaps Karen will have learned from her decisions and be a better person because of the time that she is having to serve. Jail time is a massive punishment for someone to have to deal with. However, I don't think it is too harsh given that I could have lost my daughter because of Karen's behavior the day of the incident. And to end the video on a slightly more lighthearted note, we will read one last story from r/petty revenge. So, about 20 years ago, I was living in a 2-story apartment building and had the neighbor from hell move in. Single mother with 2 teenage boys, I had a few incidents over the time she lived there that would fall between petty and pro-revenge and FAFO, and if people want it, I can post some of those stories. Anyway, the final issue was noise complaints. After school let out for the summer, she started letting her kids stay up and they played music and TV way too loud, way too late into the night. And since I needed to get up early in the day, she was not a pleasant person to talk to. I reported her to the complex security for noise problems. Then I had a business trip come up that kept me out of town for over 3 weeks. When I got back, there was an eviction notice on my door for being non-responsive to noise complaints. So what I did was I gathered my papers from my expense forms and went to the business office to see what was going on here. The agent I spoke with told me that numerous noise complaints were made about me and I had responded to none of them. So I asked what the dates were, since I'd been out of town with documentation for most of the past month. We were going over this and the agent was getting suspicious about the complaints. Then the other agent/property manager got a call and told the agent I was working with that the guy in my apartment was doing it again. So I asked what I was doing and she said, "Your music is too loud." I told her I had nothing turned on in my place, so either she was getting a bad call or someone broke into my unit while I was in the office. The agent I was working with told her that I had hotel and restaurant receipts showing I was a few hundred miles away when all of the other complaints had been made this month. The three of us went to my apartment and surprise, no noise at all. So we went back to the office, they revoked the eviction and gave the lady above me a 40-day eviction notice for filing false complaints on top of her other behaviors. And yeah guys, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to post some star emojis in the comments and I will see you again tomorrow.